Gardaí at Lucan commenced a murder investigation following a series of violent incidents in West Dublin in the early hours of this morning, which ended in the fatal stabbing of a man in his 30s. First, a car was burned out at a house in the Glenfield Avenue area. Then another car was rammed around Greenford Crescent before a house was attacked with a petrol bomb in the Shan Castle estate.
It was just before 6 o'clock on Monday morning, the 7th of July, when the silence in Shandcastle Close, a quiet residential street in Clondalkin, was broken. A call came in to Gardaí. Something had happened inside a house, something violent. Within minutes, officers arrived. Inside the home, they found 34-year-old Joseph McEvoy, a father of two, bleeding heavily from multiple stab wounds. He was still alive when they reached him. Barely. Emergency services rushed him to Connolly Hospital in Blanchardstown. But it was too late. Joseph was pronounced dead a short time later. The scene was immediately sealed off. Garda technical experts were called in. Every inch of the property became a crime scene: fingerprints, shoe prints, blood patterns, anything that could explain what led to this brutal death. This wasn't a burglary, and it wasn't random. Someone wanted Joseph dead, and they made sure of it. Joseph McEvoy wasn't just another name in the headlines. He was 34 years old, a father, a teammate, a fighter on the pitch, and a gentle soul off it. To his friends, he was Joe, captain of his local football club, a man who never missed a match, never let a friend down. He lived in Clondalkin his whole life, grew up on the same streets where he was killed. Those who knew him say he was the type of person who would give you his last euro or walk across town just to check on someone having a bad day. Joseph had two young children. People close to the family say he was fiercely proud of being a dad, that every decision he made was for his kids. His sudden, violent death didn't just take one life. It tore through an entire community. And as the news spread that Monday, Clondalkin began to mourn and to ask one question. Why would anyone want Joseph McEvoy dead? Inside the house, Gardaí found signs of struggle. Furniture pushed aside. Blood spattered across the floor. The scene was chaos, violent, fast, and personal. Joseph McEvoy had been stabbed multiple times. The wounds weren't random. They were targeted. Garda sources believe the attack happened shortly before dawn, likely in a sudden burst of rage. But what stood out most was the silence. No sign of forced entry. No neighbors reported shouting. It all happened quickly, and then nothing. The knife used in the killing hasn't been confirmed publicly, but investigators say they recovered a potential weapon nearby. It was immediately sent for forensic testing. By midday, officers had expanded their search. They canvassed the area, knocked on doors, pulled CCTV from every angle within 300 meters. They weren't just looking for a killer, they were trying to understand why this happened. And the answers, it seemed, were closer than anyone expected. Within hours of Joseph McEvoy's death, the Gardaí had locked in on one disturbing detail. There were no signs of a break-in, no smashed windows, no kicked-in door. That meant one thing: Joseph likely knew his killer. Detectives focused immediately on his inner circle friends, contacts, recent arguments. A timeline was built hour by hour. Phone records were pulled. Surveillance footage from nearby shops and junctions was collected. By the end of the day, they had zeroed in on a name. A 41-year-old man from Clondalkin, known locally and believed to have been in the house that morning. Garda sources won't say yet what tied him to the scene, but whatever it was enough. Just 24 hours after the murder, on Tuesday, the 8th of July, he was arrested. A formal charge was filed. The man said nothing, not a single word. On Tuesday, the 8th of July, just one day after the murder, the suspect was brought to court. A 41-year-old man, no expression, no emotion. He stood in the dock at Dublin District Court, charged with the murder of Joseph McEvoy. When asked how he pleaded, he said nothing. No reply, no explanation, no reaction. He was remanded in custody, meaning he'll remain in prison until his next court appearance later this month. The judge ordered that he receive medical attention while in custody, though Gardaí didn't elaborate on why. Outside the courthouse, there was tension. Family members, reporters, stunned residents, all waiting for a glimpse. But the accused kept his head down as he was led away under Garda escort. This wasn't just a legal formality. It was the first time the suspect stood before the justice system, and he chose to meet it in silence. The murder of Joseph McEvoy sent shockwaves through Clondalkin. He wasn't a stranger. He was one of them. A father, a teammate, a friend. At his local football club, teammates placed flowers and jerseys on the pitch in his memory. One handwritten note read, "Gone too soon, Cap. You led us with heart." On social media, tributes poured in. "He was the kind of fella who lit up the room," one friend posted. "A gentle giant, always smiling. This doesn't feel real." Another post simply said, "Two children lost their dad today. For what?" Neighbors described the days after the killing as unreal, people walking the streets in silence, kids whispering questions adults couldn't answer. Even those who didn't know Joseph personally said his murder felt close, like something sacred had been broken in the community. It wasn't just a crime, it was a loss, and the pain is still spreading. In court, the Gardaí revealed what little they could. The accused was brought before Judge Teresa Kelly at Dublin District Court on Tuesday afternoon. Garda Detective Sergeant Mark Murphy formally charged the man with the murder of Joseph McEvoy at Shandcastle Close, Clondalkin, on the 7th of July. When the charge was read aloud, the accused gave no reply. No denial, no defense, just silence. The Gardaí requested that the man be remanded in custody, which was granted. He was ordered to appear again via video link later this month. The judge also directed that he receive medical attention in custody, though no details were shared about his condition or behavior. The courtroom was quiet. Press were present, but the mood was heavy. A man had been charged with taking another man's life and said nothing in response. Outside, the Gardaí made it clear. The investigation is still active. Forensics are underway. More statements are being gathered. And while one man stands accused, the full story is far from over. With the suspect now remanded in custody, the legal wheels begin to turn. Under Irish law, a murder charge begins in the district court, but that's just the start. The real trial will happen later in the Central Criminal Court, and before it gets there, Gardaí need to build a solid case. That means more interviews, more forensics, more pressure. Joseph McEvoy's autopsy has been completed, but Gardaí have not released the findings. That report will be crucial. It may contain evidence about the time of death, the weapon used, or whether Joseph tried to fight back. The suspect will remain behind bars until his next court appearance via video link, scheduled for later this month. In the meantime, Gardaí are expected to hand over what's called a book of evidence, a detailed file outlining everything they have on the case. If the Director of Public Prosecutions approves the file, the case will move up to a full murder trial. That could take months, maybe longer. But one thing is certain: Joseph's family, his friends, and the community will be watching every step. They want justice, and now it's in motion. Even with an arrest and a murder charge, the questions keep piling up. Why was Joseph McEvoy killed? Was it a personal feud, a moment of rage, Or something deeper, something no one's talking about yet? Gardai haven't confirmed the motive. They haven't said whether the suspect and Joseph had a history, but sources suggest they knew each other. That raises even more questions. Did they argue that night? Was this planned or spontaneous? Another mystery, the weapon. Gardai said a potential knife was recovered, but haven't confirmed if it's the actual murder weapon. Until forensics come back, that's just speculation. And what about the suspect's silence? Why no reply in court? Is it guilt, shock, or part of a legal strategy? For now, the case is locked behind the walls of Garda interviews, forensic labs, and courtroom doors. But outside in Clondalkin and across Ireland, people are asking the same thing. What really happened inside that house? And who, beyond the accused, might still know the truth? In the middle of all the headlines, the court reports, and the forensics are two children, Joseph McEvoy's children. They've lost their father, not to an accident, not to illness, but to violence inside the very home meant to keep him safe. No child should have to grow up with that kind of silence, the kind that sits across the dinner table, the kind that stares back from empty seats at football games and school plays. For Joseph's family, there's no closure yet, just grief. And for his friends, teammates, neighbors, the people who stood shoulder to shoulder with him on muddy pitches and Sunday mornings, this still feels like a dream they haven't woken up from. But it's real. The Gardaí continue to investigate. The courts will move at their own pace, and maybe in time the full story will come out. But until then, what's left is a man remembered not for how he died, but for how he lived. A father, a friend, a fighter. Joseph McEvoy, gone at 34.